Democratic Party would not support us, no help at all. We were like Bernie Sanders. They saw me as a Bernicrat. They did not want to support us.
Yeah, let's talk about that story with the van, them taking away van access from you. I believe that happened in 2016, correct? The Democrats?
Correct. And it was roughly the same time they took away access to Bernie Sanders on a national level.
What's going on, everybody? This is Case Study QB, and we are in the Progressive War Room with my man, Reverend Tom Wakely. Tom is a very interesting guy. He's currently running as a Green Party candidate in Texas. And go ahead and introduce yourself, Tom, and then we're going to get into some questions.
Yeah, I'm Tom Wakely, San Antonio, Texas. I'm running for Congress in the 21st Congressional District as an independent Green Party candidate. In 2016, I was the Democratic Party nominee for the same district. I jumped ballot lines because of the lack of support from the Democratic Party on the issues that were important to me, namely climate change. That is the most important issue as far as I'm concerned. The planet is burning and we need to stop electing fossil fuel candidates. Anyway, that's who I am.
Perfect. So I'm going to get into some nitty gritty because this is the political war room. We want to talk political strategy. We want to talk campaign. I want to demystify running for office, you know, the candidacies. Like me, myself, I'm learning myself. So I'm going to be asking some questions. So the first thing, let's go back to, this is your third time running. You ran 2016. Then you ran in 2018 for governor, and now you're running the third time. How did you beat the millionaire back in 2016 in the primaries? I want to get you to break that down for me.
In 2016, when I ran in the Democratic primary, I was facing a challenger out of Austin, Texas, a multi-millionaire tech guy. He hired campaign consultants. He put up signs. I mean, they ran a traditional campaign. And it was just me and a buddy of mine, a retired mailman, actually mail carrier. And we ran a community organizing campaign instead. We went to places that normal candidates don't go to. We went to public housing units and knocked on doors. Nice. We went to bars. We spent a lot of time in bars talking to people. Nice. We spent time at apartment complexes. All the places that people traditionally don't go to. Nice. We went to, because it was a community organizing campaign. When
we talked before, you talked about how people who, at that point, Bernie had lost the primary and a lot of the campaign came, you were able to adopt or inherit a lot of his campaign. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. The primary was in March. We wound up winning the primary 60-40, but we had no staff because it was just me and Dan Torres. But then all of a sudden, we literally put out the word on Facebook, social media. If anybody's interested in helping us now that we've won the primary, we're going to be at this restaurant. Just show up. And one after one, people started showing up day after day, and they were all Bernie people. Some of them were actually on staff working on the Bernie campaign up to the March primary. So we actually inherited a group of people. I'd say there were 6 of them. They were fantastic, all young, all under 30, energetic, and nice. I can't tell you how great these guys were.
Let's talk about the money side. Let me know, how much did you raise in that particular primary, 2016 money, and then also how much did your opponent, who ultimately won, the Republican, how much did he raise?
During the primary, I spent about $3,500. My opponent then spent, I'm thinking, we're closer to $60,000.
And that was the millionaire in the primary, right?
We won because, you know, we didn't have the money he had, but we had the voters, so that was good.
Wow.
In the general election in 2016, we spent roughly $70,000, all small donors. He spent like $1.5 million. So there's a big difference between my campaign and his campaign. And I can tell you, if we had $1.5 million, we probably would have won that campaign. But the Democratic Party would not support us, no help at all. We were like Bernie Sanders. They saw me as a Bernicrat. They did not want to support us. But anyway.
So
that's another story.
Yeah, let's talk about that story with the van, them taking away van access from you. I believe that happened in 2016, correct? The Democrats?
Correct. And it was roughly the same time they took away access to Bernie Sanders on a national level.
Yeah, I remember
so
that.
I think it was, I haven't talked to other candidates from back then, but we were hit with exactly the same thing. They just took away the van. Now, Bernie was able to get the van back. We were not able to get the van back. So this was, I believe it was late July, early August. A couple months before the general election, all of a sudden we're cut off from all this voter information. So we were back hitting the streets again because we didn't have access to voter files anymore.
Now let's talk about what van is for those who don't know.
It's basically a list of all the voters in your district with. You can get the voters who are registered anywhere in the country from your district, for mayor, whatever, but it has no other information other than the voter's name and address. And what the van does is that people over the years have updated that van to include phone numbers, social media accounts, that type of stuff. So it was easier to reach these people because the van had been updated. And that's what we were doing too. We were updating the van.
Okay.
So my opponent now in 2020 is using information we were able to gather back in 2016.
Wow. So you did the work of updating. Your campaign was updating the van, going along, and then boom, the Democrats just came and used and abused you, basically.
Pretty much so, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I like the story where you told me that, you didn't pay for the van directly. Tell me how you got access to the van.
Well, after we had won the primary, I went out and talked to my opponent. We sat down for lunch up in Austin. We had a beer. We talked. And he said he wouldn't endorse me, but he did say that I would give you access to the van because he had bought and paid the Democratic Party for access to it. So he gave our campaign his login information and his password. And that's what, so we were using his account.
Which is kind of nice. I mean, he didn't endorse you, but I guess that would have been helpful if you didn't get if the Democrats didn't take it away from you. It would have been helpful.
Oh no, I thought it was. I appreciated his giving us the access to the van because we couldn't afford it at that point.
So here's a lesson for those who are running for office, or if you get to this point, it is helpful. You always hear about the opponent conceding. They're having that phone call on whoever lost, calls the other person and congratulate them on winning. And I guess even having a little sit down can potentially be a good thing in this case, right?
Yeah, it was. It got pretty nasty towards the end. It wasn't between the candidates. It was my opponent had hired a consultant campaign manager. And she got pretty nasty, so there's some hard feelings as we came out of this. But I sent his wife some flowers too.
That's nice. But if you don't mind, can you tell me, give me one example, if you don't mind, of how it got nasty?
I think where we were up in one of the small little towns up in the country, rural towns, and there was a meeting, and it kind of exploded over policy.
Okay.
And so his campaign manager was sitting in the audience, and she kept yelling at me.
Okay.
And I kind of told her to shut up. And that kind of,
yeah.
Some hard feelings were left there. But like you said, after we won the primary, I sent his wife some flowers, and I invited him out to lunch and all of that. So
nice. So let's move on in time. So that was 2016. Like you said, if you had $1 million to fight back against the Republican $1 million, maybe you would have won. Well, that's interesting. We got to find our way for progressives to really either have public financing go through so that the playing fields are even, or find a way to raise the small donations, even at the congressional level, so that we can go up against the. Oh,
I agree. I think public financing of all these elections, there's so much money pouring into some of it's incredible amount. The breaking news 2 days ago was my current Democratic opponent, Wendy Davis, raised $3.5 million during this last quarter.
Wow. Okay.
And so our breaking news was Tom didn't raise $3.5 million.
Yeah, so this is going to be, so let's get into that. Let's move forward in time. 2016, 2018, you ran for governor, right? Let me know.
I entered the Democratic primary for governor on the same message I was trying to get out to people in 16, which was climate change.
Okay.
That we needed to address this now. I said in 16, we are having problems, and this would soon turn into a crisis if we didn't start banning fracking in Texas, in the United States. I also talked about that we needed to start capping all these wells. There's literally millions and millions of oil and gas wells throughout the United States that need to be capped. Some of them going back to the 1930s.
Wow.
And they're just leaking methane for, since the 1930s into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So when I ran for governor, I carried the same message throughout the state. Look, Texas is a big energy producer, and I understand that, but we have to transition away from it now. We have to ban fracking. We have to cap these wells. And I told you it's going to cost a lot of money to do that. And Texas is one state that doesn't have a state income tax.
Okay.
They rely on sales tax, which affects poor people more than it does rich people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I said, look, we're going to have a state income tax to raise the money that's going to be necessary to cap all of these leaking gas wells. I think there's like a little over 1 million in Texas alone.
Jeez.
And I think the last, this was 2018. I think I saw a figure, it was like $100 billion just in Texas alone to cap these wells. So again, my message that people weren't connecting climate change with loss of jobs. I mean, it was just, I didn't get anywhere in the primary at all.
Okay. So let's talk about that real quick. You said 100 billion for Texas alone?
Texas alone, I think the last figure I saw for the entire United States was $600 billion.
$600 billion. Okay, so that's about the size, the amount of the military budget.
The state of Pennsylvania has a lot of uncapped wells as well. And they have a state fund to pay for capping those wells. Well, based upon the level of funding in Pennsylvania, it'll take close to 200 years to cap all those wells. We can't wait 200 years. No. We need to start capping those wells like yesterday.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that one. All right, let's move forward to 2020 now. How did you, why didn't you run again as a Democrat, and how did you run as a Green candidate?
My experience in 2016 and then again in 2018 convinced me that there was just no way the Texas Democratic Party would ever support a Democratic socialist, which I am. They weren't really serious about climate change. And then when I went up to Austin to the Democratic Party headquarters and talked to them, they told me, look, Tom, you're going to have some serious competition in the primary this year. Wendy Davis. And she's a corporate Democrat. She's a millionaire. She has deep ties to the oil and gas industry. In fact, her former law partner was Rick Perry's former chief of staff. And all of y'all know Rick Perry is now Trump's energy secretary. Well, his former chief of staff was Wendy Davis's former law partner. Wow. So oil and gas industry ties don't just mean money. It also means relationship ties. And that's what I'm trying to get out to people. It's not just the money. It's those relationship ties that are just, if not more important than the money coming from the oil and gas industry.
Yeah. And she was a Republican also, right?
She used to be a Republican. She switched over to the Democrats. And even when she became a Democrat about a dozen years or so, she was still making campaign contributions to Republicans.
Wow. Okay. So this is the type of Democrats they have in Texas, everyone. And basically, I want to ask you, so how did you get recruited to the Greens? So basically, this person told you you're going to have a big money candidate, and pretty much, and that's what they do nationally. I remember back in 2016, it was supposed to be Jeb Bush. He raised a ton of money, over like, I think it was like 100 million, or he raised a ton of money before he jumped in the race. And that was supposed to intimidate all the other Republicans to get out and just let Jeb go all the way to the nomination, but we know what happened there. Hillary did something similar where she would raise a ton of money, and that's a tactic that a political strategy that the establishment uses. So in Tom's particular race, you had Wendy Davis. She raised all this money, and now to the point where you have other people doing the dirty work for her, where they're just telling Tom, hey, it doesn't make any sense for you to even jump in because she has this amount of money. So
yeah, I think she entered the primary with $9 million in the bank.
Wow.
You know,
from when she ran for governor, right?
Yeah, she just moved the money over from, she ran for governor, I think, in 2014.
And then how did you get introduced to the Green Party?
After that, I said, look, I'm not up for fighting another primary election. Because I think if you're taking your progressive message into a primary, you're covered by the media, the mainstream media. You're everywhere. But if you lose that primary, your voice is already silenced. You never hear from, nobody talks to you again.
Okay.
So I just said, I'm just not going to run this time. There's no way I can compete against a multi-millionaire corporate lawyer that has all the backing of national Democrats as well as local Democrats. So I gave up. And then shortly after the March primary this year, I got a phone call from the Green Party of Texas asking me if I would be willing to run on the Green Party ballot line. And I said, sure, no problem at all. But I wanted to be perfectly clear, just clear with the Democrats. I'm an independent. And the only reason I ran in 2016, I was an independent like Bernie Sanders. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent, but just gave me ballot access. And, people take you more seriously if you're running in the Democratic primary than they would if you're just out there running as an independent.
Yeah. Okay.
So they said, okay, that's no problem. You can run as an independent Green. And I said, sure, no problem at all. Okay. So that's what I am. Now, I am now running as an independent Green on the ballot line here in Texas.
Good. Now, God bless you, because I know that it's tough for anybody to run on any party ticket, as an independent, as a third party, because, and I'm going to ask you, what do you tell somebody that says, oh, you're going to split the left vote? I don't even consider Wendy Davis, who was a previous Republican, maybe on certain issues she's more moderate, but what would you tell to a Texan that says, hey, I want to give my vote to Wendy Davis?
I think it's a misconception. I think people that would vote for a progressive like myself would never vote for a Democrat to begin with.
Exactly.
These are people that if there's just Wendy Davis and Chip Roy, the Republican, on the ballot, people just wouldn't vote. I mean, that's just the reality. So I'm not taking votes away from anybody. I am bringing people to the voting booth, because we have a progressive message that I think resonates with the people in the district. Okay. And I think one of the things that, and it's clear that we were a threat, because I think people should know that the DCCC and Wendy Davis both sued to keep me off the ballot. And I was actually kicked off the ballot for 3 weeks. Wow. The Texas Third Court of Appeals issued a temporary restraining order against the Texas Secretary of State to keep me off the ballot. Well, subsequent appeal to the Texas Supreme Court put me back on the ballot. But for 3 weeks, we were off the ballot, which has really hurt our campaign to this point. In the long history of the 21st Congressional District, the Green Party has always put up a candidate every 2 years for the last 20 years. And the Democrats never said a word. All of a sudden, they go after me. So I think they understand that the progressive message will resonate with people in the district. Especially since the demographics in the district has changed so much. I believe it's like 38% of the district now are Latinos. And they don't buy into what Wendy Davis and Chip Roy, the Republican, are saying.